Hi there. My name is Scott McFarland, and I'm a preaching minister here at the Woodsfield Church of Christ. We've been doing these Wednesday devotionals as a way to try to keep up during the week with some thoughts and Bible study, and I thought I'd try something a little different today. Try to come outside and shoot a little video from one of my favorite spots at our place. Standing on a hill behind our house. And I don't know if you can see this behind me, but at the bottom, down below me, there is a valley. And the road that runs right by our house is down in the bottom here of the valley. And really wish that you could see all of this because this road stretches from beyond you, from behind the camera, all the way past me. And this is the road that Abby and I enjoy taking runs on in the evenings. And one of the reasons why we enjoy it so much is because it's one of the few flat places that we can take a run around our place. But our entire run, this road that we, from where we start and turn around and come back, it's about a 2-mile stretch. And as you're standing here, if you could turn around and I could show you on the other side and then beyond me, you're looking at about half of that run that we take. And it's kind of funny because that run, that 2-mile run, will typically take us somewhere around 20 minutes to complete. And as you're standing here, if you were to stand out and look at the road that I'm able to see around me here at the bottom of the hill, you kind of probably, from standing up here on the road, might not think it's that long of a distance, when the reality is that you're able to see about a mile's worth of road here in front of the camera and behind the camera. I'm reminded of a story in Habakkuk. In the Old Testament, there's a minor prophet at the very end of the Old Testament. His name is Habakkuk, and he writes a book about his prophecy to his people, the people of Judah. And he's writing towards the end of the Old Testament at a time right before his people were about to be taken captive in what would later become the siege of Jerusalem. And his book starts out where he questions God. He has some problems that he's wrestling with. One is the wickedness of his own people. And he sees his nation going farther from God and wants to know, is God watching this? Is God doing anything about it? Is he going to act? And God answers in that first chapter that, yes, in fact, I am watching this as well, and I see it. And I haven't forgotten, and I will act. In fact, I will do something that if I were to tell you everything that I was going to do, you wouldn't believe it. But God reveals just a little bit to Habakkuk about what he was planning on doing. He said, I'm going to punish your people. I'm going to bring the Babylonians in to take them captive. And Habakkuk actually doesn't like this idea. He questions God because in his mind the Babylonians are more wicked than the people of Judah, and he asks God in reply, why are you choosing a people that is more wicked than the very people you're trying to punish and teach a lesson to? And throughout the book, it's only 3 chapters long, but Habakkuk and God go back and forth in this cosmic conversation of justice. What is just? And Habakkuk is questioning, what is God doing, and why isn't God acting in a way that would make sense to him? And God doesn't reveal his whole hand to Habakkuk in the story, but Habakkuk at the end of the book comes to a place where he acknowledges at least that God is sovereign, and God has a plan, and God has all things in his hand and knows the end. And he says at the very end, even though the tree may not bloom and the vine tree may die, I will still trust in the Lord, the God of my salvation. I think about where we are, and I think about the story of Habakkuk and how oftentimes it is that we can be so nearsighted in life. You know, as you're looking on this hill, looking down into the valley, the course of Abby and I's typical run down this road would not seem like such a long run. But once you get down on the road and you start hitting the pavement with your shoes and you start making that run, all of a sudden what seems to be not so big of a deal from up here gets to be a little bit harder. And at times, if the weather's not so great, if it's hot outside, that run can seem a lot longer than it really is. And life is sometimes like that too. You know, we have the unfortunate chance as human beings, or the unfortunate vantage point of not being able to see everything that God is doing. Habakkuk is looking at his problem very nearsightedly and wrestling with God on what he sees right in front of him. And God says, no, I'm doing something, and if I were to tell you everything that I would be doing, you wouldn't believe it. And I think sometimes God is trying to tell us something in life as we look at opportunities missed, or we sometimes see things that didn't happen the way that we would wanted them to happen in life. And sometimes the difficult situations that we encounter can sometimes seem like God isn't there, or he's not paying attention, or he's making a mistake, or he's not seeing what we're seeing. And the reality is that God is standing up on a hill somewhere, and he has a vantage point that is so much deeper, so much more broader than ours, and is able to understand and know things that we just can't know. It's funny, the story of Habakkuk, and now over 2,000 years later, we can see exactly what God was doing all those steps of the way, and how his plan to teach his children a lesson in the Old Testament ultimately gave way to the Savior to come in the New Testament, and for God's people to be ultimately redeemed through the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. And everything fits now. Looking back retrospectively in the rearview mirror, we can see that God did know what he was doing. You know, I know the last couple weeks and the next few weeks probably, if not a couple months, are going to be full of challenges. And at times, if this hasn't happened to you already, I can almost guarantee you that it will, that you'll look at something and you'll think, man, God, what are you doing? I just don't think you know what you're doing right now. And the perspective that we have is whatever is right in front of us. We're down on the road, we're watching the pavement, maybe a few steps out, and that's all we can see. But I want to tell you that there is a God in heaven. And like I'm standing on this hill, he's able to look down and see all that's below him, you and I, and the situations that we encounter. And he's still working. He hasn't forgotten. He hasn't ignored what's in front of us as we sometimes think he has. And he knows exactly what you're dealing with. And he's preparing you and giving you opportunities and teaching you and refining you and helping you to grow into maturity as a believer. Now, I know it doesn't always seem like that. Sometimes it seems like God's unfair, and there are times where we mourn and grieve loss. And that's okay. I think God, in his infinite wisdom, understands that and gives us space for that. But at the end of the day, what he really wants us to be able to do is to turn to him and to say, you know what, God, in the midst of all this uncertainty, in the midst of everything that's going on, I still trust you. One of the common phrases that you might be familiar with from the book of Habakkuk is the righteous will live by faith. It's a phrase that Paul picks up in the book of Romans and quotes it, but it's not unique to Paul. It's from the Old Testament. It's from the book of Habakkuk. Because the righteous do live by faith. And faith is trusting in what we cannot see, in a God who is able to see. Thanks for joining us. I hope this has been an encouragement to you. Please reach out, like and share this video if it's been helpful to you, and let us know how we can help you in your walk with the Lord.